What's up, guys? Welcome back to the channel and welcome to episode 2 of the Mighty Max rebuild series. If you didn't catch episode 1, quick recap. We did a new turbocharger, Garrett G3770, paired with an RTEC cast stainless steel exhaust manifold, and then a new 3.5-inch titanium exhaust. Had a great time doing it. You should definitely check it out. So with all those new upgrades, of course, we need to do new plumbing. We need new charge pipes, new radiator, new intercooler, changing out a bunch of stuff, and in today's video, we're gonna walk through all of that. Let's go. So with this new turbo system comes a lot of other challenges, not necessarily big ones, but things that have to change to allow for all this new stuff, this new routing, new plumbing, so on and so forth. The turbo used to be here, now it's there, and because of that, I had to move things like the alternator. It's now gonna go over there. The water pump outlet, this thing used to kind of come around and snake around the old alternator turbo kit. It was somewhere in there. That's gonna change. We're gonna run a 90 off here, a little fitting there. We'll come over to our radiator. Radiator inlet and outlet are going to stay the same. Intercooler inlet and outlet are mostly the same, but we're going to a bigger intercooler core and we're going to a larger radiator core as well, just to kind of counteract any future problems that we may have from making a little extra power. We're gonna push this one a little bit farther and it might need the extra cooling capacity that comes along with the new radiator and intercooler assembly. Another thing that you may have noticed is that I cut these off. I wanna make everything this direction aluminum. I cut some 2-bolt flanges. They're gonna sit like this. Then I have the other side in aluminum. That way we can build it all at 1.25 inch 120 wall aluminum tubing. Just went ahead and removed a few samples to show you guys what I'm talking about. So I don't know if I'm gonna use any of these 1-bolt designs, but I just went ahead and cut them because they were very inexpensive. And then I got 2-bolt designs as well. And the aluminum is a little bit thicker here because of, you know, it's weaker or whatever. I also got random stuff like aluminum gussets. I just drew this up quickly and cut it out. I think I like it okay enough. Stuff like this is meant to be bent along these folds right here, these little points, and then cut down right here somewhere. I just wanted it to be long, so I had some room. Same with these tabs. This is meant to be cut down. I don't know where yet, but it can be maybe bent. I went a little thick on that. But to mount things like fender brackets, headlights, stuff like that. These are direct copies of what I had before, where I had steel to mount the headlights in place. I had like a bolt here, a bolt hole down here, and then this side got welded. So basically I can copy the same front end that I had because I really like the architecture of it. I just wanted something a little bit lighter. So the fender mounts to this and that, and then I'll have another fender mount out here on this new headlight assembly. And so the 2-bolt flange won't be quite like this. It'll be rotated a little bit. And then I ordered titanium hardware to bolt this all together. That way what you do see looks cool and it doesn't look so dated. Now for the bottom area here, and come off of this with the 1.25 inch, somewhat like this, and just support the intercooler that way so it floats. Before I can do any of that, I have to put the hood back on the truck, get it as aligned as I can with the 2 fenders. So we're gonna do both fenders, a new hood, a new to me hood off of a OEM truck so it fits much better, less fender gaps and stuff like that. And then I'm gonna mount the grill and position it, and then I can mount the intercooler in relation to the grill so that everything is center and straight and all that good stuff. It's a very tedious process. It's not fun at all, to be honest. But after you get all that sorted, it is really fun because then you can put the intercooler in place, the radiator, and plumb all the fun stuff. And then we're that much closer to firing it up. And of course that is an exciting time. So I'm gonna have to power through some of this boring shit and then we'll get to the good stuff, but I'll only show you guys the stuff that matters. Let's get to it. Now this is the new hood. The hood I did have fit absolutely terribly. None of the body lines lined up. And so even when like this line will be perfect, you can see that's like dead on right there. That middle one would be off a little bit with like the center of that cowl, or this one would be off and you can see that one is also dead on. And then my gap up here looks, you know, as good as it can. I'm not a body shop guy, but it looks pretty good. And so at least we have a nice basis to start off with because the front end needs to be perfect. It's a big deal to me. I hate when you see a tube front that doesn't fit as well as an OEM front. It is doable, you just gotta take your time. Anyway, with all that said, now we gotta throw the fenders on. The fenders will essentially float in place. With those in position, then I can put the grill in the center section here. I can put the headlights in place, and that's how I find all of my mounting points so that this thing can all come together and look relatively stock with the hood closed. So the fenders are bolted on. I got a bolt here, 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 and then the 2 lower ones. Now the 2 lower ones I was gonna skip over, but they're important because they pull the fender like inward, and it almost like sucks it in a little bit. So then if you have a smooth panel gap right here, when these are tight, if those weren't in there, it would kind of bulge out a little, or it would pull in up here, and then, you know, just, you gotta have all the bolts in, plain and simple. I went ahead and mocked up everything I've got This is a 95 grille. Now this bumper is a 99 to 2000 Montero Sport bumper. I think it looks super cool. It's got like this little front lip on it. It's perfect for me to do like a front splitter or something like that. It's got a nice big open mouth, especially after I cut out that license plate area and all that plastic to get room or airflow to the intercooler. Very happy with it. I'm going to pull the bumper off and cut out all the plastic shit in the way so I can see what it looks like with the intercooler in there. A little bit of cutoff wheel action, and now we're that much closer to the final product. Of course, this will all go away. I want this to look like this, so it's just going to be closed off or whatever, and then this will be filled in and just smooth, so it'll look like this, so it won't be there at all. This is a very loose test fit, but I got my intercooler core sitting up on my buddy's wheel that is sitting on a 2x4, and the bumper is leaning out, you know, this direction. So with it tipped in like that, the grill is wanting to fall. Everything wants to fall. It's pretty sketchy, but you can get a rough idea of how it's going to look. I really like it. Just in case I didn't talk about this intercooler, this is a Speed Factory 850 horsepower intercooler core. They do such a good job. Their welds are so freaking dialed. It's really hard to compete with something like that. And I had them do the Vibrant Vangeance on here from the get-go. So they went ahead and welded this for me, so I didn't have to. And it's so sick. So the fenders are tight, and the grill is taken into place with masking tape. Now I got my gaps on the grill pretty good. Grill to corner lights, I guess, on both sides. To bend up this first piece, I'm gonna use the same tactic I did in episode 1, where I used bend tech to measure my total length, measure where I want my bend, and then just kind of follow the instructions. I do want to bend it to conform to this. So I measured this, and it's 5 degrees. I'll show you how I got that. So I have my angle cube here. Turn it on. Set it right here on the grill, and then zero it out. It's hard to do with the camera, but let's just assume this is working. 0 degrees, okay? Put it on this side, 4.55 degrees. So we're gonna call it 5 degrees. That means we've got a 5 degree variance between that and that. So we're gonna put a 5 degree bend, which means the two 90 degree bends, the bend that's here and here, are now gonna be 5 degrees less collectively. So 2.5 degrees on either side. Got my tube all marked up, followed my bend tech suggestions here. I went ahead and tacked on these 2-bolt flanges on the aluminum side underneath so that I can make adjustments if needed, and then I went ahead and bolted the steel side. And the plan is to position this in the truck running where I want it, mark with a Sharpie, and then I have to cut off the old setup right here. So alrighty, it's coming together. I went ahead and prepped this. It was driving me nuts how it looked before, and then obviously this is just in here as a prop. But you get a rough idea. These are all under the fenders, and it looks really good. I'm really stoked on it, so that's where I'm at there. I can't position this until I get the grill and everything back in place, but with this completely prepped, I'll be able to lean underneath the fender with a torch and tack, jump around a little bit, get to where I can, and then, you know, go from there. Cool. Fast forward, this is completely prepped and ready to be welded. It's wiped down, ready to rip. And for our standoffs, I'm gonna use this right here. So I got 2 of them already done. They're notched and they are ready to go. Now these sides are already welded. And the plan is to come off like this, and then it will meet the crossbar, which is imaginary right now. Gonna go like that, and that's gonna go like that. Okay, so I got it tacked down here, I got it tacked up here, I got it tacked down here, and then I have not tacked it up there yet. And the reason being is I want to make sure this is all level. I'm going to switch over to an aluminum cup, go ahead and tack that side, since that side is my like ideal side, and then we're going to make this side match. Everything's tacked, and I'm ready to move on to the next step. Now I would finish weld all this, but I really want to get the intercooler mounted, or at least tacked up in position, because I want to make sure that everything is straight. I'm going to go ahead and mount the grill first, and what's nice is I do have these 2 locating tabs that are left on the cutout version of these OEM fenders here. Then I can shut the hood and make sure all my alignment's there. I made a real small tab for the grill. Grill tab tacked up. I'm going to put the grill back on now, and then I got to bend a tube that's going to run inside our Montero bumper, so that we can position the bumper so that we know where the intercooler needs to be relative to the front of the bumper, or the opening rather. Looking at the front end and deciding where the bumper mounts are going to come from is pretty important. What I'm gonna do this time is the intercooler mounts are gonna come off this lower bar here. Then on the top, I think what I do like is doing a vertical or a top mount here with a vertical piece that goes up and ties into the top of the rad support. And then these side pieces, I will cut this off and I will put a 2-bolt flange here, come off with the aluminum adapter, do just a single bar that goes all the way around. That's the plan for right now. I'm gonna put the intercooler in place where it's roughly gonna go, and then it'll make more sense. Now the intercooler is gonna lean forward just a hair. And what that's gonna do is give me the ability to angle the charge pipes up enough to clear the frame rails. And then that leaves these pieces completely available to come out to like a vertical piece and go up to our bash bar. So with that being said, we need to look at the inside of our Montero bumper. So let's go bend that up. It's gonna start here, come through this curve here, maybe do a bend there so that I can get it to hug a little tighter through that long stretch. Same thing goes here, then one more bend. And just like that, here we go. Tucks in there real nice, touches the bumper here, makes contact here. Got all my pieces notched up. I'm gonna go ahead and prep all these pieces, get everything tacked in place, and then I gotta work on how the bumper's gonna mount to this, and then how this entire assembly is gonna mount to the truck. I jumped around and welded a few spots just to make sure that it's not gonna break when I'm handling it like so. But here's the first look at it. So obviously it's not gonna sit this high. And the flare out right here is just because it follows the actual bumper. And that flare won't be a problem because the fender flares physically are much wider than this actual position. They're like way out here. So when I build those, I'll actually connect the dots and it should look pretty good. But overall, definitely happy with this. Looks super cool. Now we can figure out how the hell we're gonna mount it to our bumper. That's next, and then this to the body, and then intercooler and radiator. We're almost there. Let's go. For mounting this bumper, I opted to use a quick latch setup. I'm pretty excited about this. Pretty sick. Very satisfying to click these in. So the plan is this stud will be mounted on the back side. It'll basically sit behind here. I left room to weld a small tab where this can be nutted in place, and this will go roughly somewhere like that. And then all I'll have to do is wrap the bumper around the bash bar, click it and take it, and we're good to go. The method I opted for is to get this side exactly dialed how I want, and then pull a template from this side and move it to the other side. Okay, with both the quick latches installed, I made these little brackets. So I cut down this bar just a little bit, and now these can slide just like this, right in there to be welded. And on this side, same thing. Now, bumper's in place. It looks pretty awesome. Moving on to the mounting of the bash bar, cutting these off, and then I'm gonna make a new one that has a similar but opposite angle inward like this to go to our uprights that you can't see at this current time. With all the grinding and prep out of the way, got the front and back together, and I made my standoff pieces. So what we're looking at is something very much like the other pieces that we used here and up there, just down there. This is a relatively like eyeballed slash here. Looking at something kind of like that. With a quick test fit, I realized I'm glad I did not actually weld all that up, because look where the intercooler tanks are. On both sides, they would be blocking those, and I would be so pissed when I tried to put this thing in place. I came up with this. Looks kind of crazy. It's what I was initially gonna do almost, so I might have wasted a ton of time there, but I got one there ready to go, and you know, matching one here. And now it's gonna look something like that. Back to the drawing board about how to make this float properly. So I notched the tube here, and then I drilled a hole that I can run a zip tie through. Now the plan is to butt this up against the inside tube right there inside the bumper and push up on it with a jack, but I'll zip tie it so the position can't move. I already got the other one in place. I think it's gonna work. Well, it's probably even more reliable than a jack under each one, the floor. So instead, let's try to lower it down and see if the floor itself can hold them. Well, there's that. So now that we've really got a good shot in here, this goes like that. It can move left and right, which gives me some adjustability. Still holds it on enough to kind of fix the tube in place. Let's try that again. So our little legs, they're zip tied here, they're zip tied there on the bottom. Hitting the floor, pushing up. We got this zip tied here, I got one zip tied there. I'm gonna pop the grill back in and make sure that all my spacing is right. and then just continue to stare at this for a minute and make sure I'm not missing something. But we'll get our lines all centered up, everything will be good and straight. And to show what I was talking about with the sag, now you can see that this bumper is, this bash bar is all the way up inside this piece of plastic here, whereas before, this part would kind of be pulled out a little bit and sitting like that, basically. So all that play would make a big difference in the way this thing physically looks. I got these flanges fully welded on both sides and they're in position and it looks like it's done. So the final part of this is just making sure that everything is dead square. I did test fit the intercooler radiator combo and it does look like it's gonna be fine. I may have to do some trimming on the frame rail there, just a hair. But overall, we're doing good. We're on the right path here. Voila! We're not entirely welded, but we're entirely mounted. And it sits dead level, and it looks fantastic. It's very symmetrical. I love the tubes in relation to the grill and all that good math stuff. I'm gonna do a few more welds here and there, just jump around. Once this is tacked and nice and sturdy, and I know I'm not gonna lean on it and knock it off and lose my shit, we're good. So excited about this. I love the way it looks. I love looking at it. I just wanna stare at it, but I wanna stare at it without a jack in the way. So we gotta get this done. I got this lower bar right here, this U-shaped bar that goes under the truck. The original frame had a straight bar going across and it made it a lot more difficult to pull the engine out. Wasn't ideal. This is ideal. This is better. I actually use this for a jack point now. It works pretty well. But I'm also gonna come off of this forward like this. And the plan is to basically go to the bottom of the inner core tank like that. Now I have two threaded M8 bungs I can weld to the bottom of the core here. I can come off, I can connect. It will support it from the bottom, and then for the top, I'm thinking I'm gonna use this piece. Now I bent this up a while ago with the plan or the intention of using it for this. So this could sit there, maybe I can flip it around and come up and be supported by this. And if nothing else, it would keep it from just flopping back and forth because realistically, all of the weight will be supported by the steel stuff down there. Because we have this center bar in the middle of the grill, you wouldn't actually see the bar coming up, which is what I'm going for. I want it to be concealed by the grill because I think it looks really clean when you look through here and you don't see anything. In order to position this, we have to get our pieces cut first. So I've got this right here, I just cut this one, same matching angle down here. And the plan is that I'll slot or notch this tube to basically run into that like that. And then you cap it on one side and drill a hole and your bolt comes up through the bottom here, right into the bottom of the inner core tank. I got my little hole saw pieces tacked in place. With the pieces finished welded, they look like this. Open it up to an M8, nice little cap, and I'm not worried about that weld bead profile because I'm going to isolate them. This is a Lowe's bushing with a washer that fits like that. And when it's bolted to the threaded bung, it looks like that. The whole one step forward, two steps back being continued today, where I was about to mount my intercooler and then I decided to cut that bar out that used to be here. So I didn't show any of that because it's just like one bar to the other. It almost looks the exact same, except I used 1.25 inch tubing on this one, same 120 wall thickness. And I just wanted to move it up and move it a little bit closer so that when my bars come off right here, they're, you know, 8 inches long or so, something like that. So I've got my tubes and I've got them mostly prepped to weld, except I left them long on one side. And then on the bottom of my intercooler, I have my standoffs, which are right here. I marked my center line on either side. They're prepped to be welded. It's pretty convenient how this is gonna work out. We've got our new bar here. It looks nice and clean. We've got our standoff here. We've got one of these sides notched. And basically, it's gonna go something like that. What you can do is I have this little angle cube here. So if I had two hands, I would do this, but you basically set the tube where you want it and then put the angle cube in place. And I got like roughly 8 degrees when I was doing it for real. So then when I went to notch my tube, I notched it at 8 degrees, and that way, put it out. Voila, we have tack welds, very strong tack welds. It's floating in place, and you can see I welded it on the top side here. Just want to make sure that we're nice and square here. Everything looks great. Yeah. Next on the list is obviously make the upper bracket for the intercooler. We got to do our upper mounts right here for the hood latches. We got to do the headlight bracketry, which is not going to be very enjoyable. It's very hard to get that all correct, you know, in the sense of like having a good beam that's like, you know, usable when you drive at night and stuff. But yeah, we're largely done with the tube front, except, you know, it's all going to be welded out. So, hell yeah. Very stoked to finally be at this point. I cannot wait to mock up the charge pipes. That's the next thing that's gonna be pretty fun. Knocking out the final portion of the intercooler bracket, I ended up cutting off the old grill mount and making an entire new one. The reason for this is mostly just because 2 tabs side by side looks very busy. It looks unplanned. And that's because it was. I cut off one of those tabs I already had pre-made. I got a grill mount here. And then what I'm gonna do is run a rod from the bottom of the intercooler bracket up. So I've showed you all this stuff before. I just went ahead and kind of sorted it out off camera. Save us both a little bit of time. There's gonna be a solid bar that comes up from here to here. It's gonna clean things up and it should be completely concealed. I'm gonna go ahead and weld all this stuff out and then I'll show you what it looks like when it's done with the grill out of the way. With things tacked from the other side, you can see what I'm talking about. So I got this little adjuster rod here. I don't know if I love it. It's kind of stupid for this situation, but I took it off my alternator since it's getting moved to that side of the engine. There's really no need for it anymore. And it gives you a little bit of adjustment, I guess, if you wanted to, you know, tension things or something like that. Like I said, it's kind of dumb, but it kind of looks cool too. The reason for the entire setup and why it sits the way that it does, I cut the side of this off and then I centered all this stuff, and that's all because I want this to sit behind the grill but not be visible. This tab right here, I cannot hide that hole because it has to be there for the grill to mount. The grill mount is offset from center, but this side I can trim so that way you don't see it from the front. This you can see from the front right now, but because I ended up using this lower hole, I'm likely going to cut off the top section here, and I'm pretty happy with it. I think that this looks goofy because it's so long, but it's because I have to get the hardware past the grill. There's really no way around that. But yeah, it doesn't look terrible. And then of course all that hardware shit is gonna change. It looks like trash right now, but it's just what I have around to hold everything together. I'm gonna throw the grill on and I'll show you that, and then we're gonna wrap this video up. With the grill in place, boom, can't see shit. That's exactly what I wanted. And like I said, you can see this piece, but I'll cut it down so that you can't see it. This was harder than I expected to get all this stuff hidden, but it's okay. It worked out pretty sick. The hardware that you can see, of course, will be titanium, much like these shock tower bolts, but brand new and sick. This center line still holds true. We're all centered up, everything looks good. Bracket's centered, rod is centered, radiator's centered. Everything is centered, and that is the most important thing. Bumper is centered, hell yeah. With that said, this video is finally over. I know I didn't finish the tube front. I still gotta work on my headlight brackets on both sides. I gotta work on the hood latches for the top. They're gonna come off right here. 1.25" rod, same as this, will come out. Little stud will go up, go through the hood. The arrow catch latch will then come down, blah, blah, blah. Just like the old setup, just all over again. I'm gonna do that in the next video. I wanted to finish it in this video, but as you can see, this is taking an insane amount of time. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really appreciate your time. I know you have a lot of stuff you could watch. Thanks for watching this. Peace out.